Okay, welcome. I'm Brett Chase of the Chicago Sun-Times. I read about environmental issues. And we got a great panel tonight to talk about Pilsen and air pollution and environmental justice. So I'm about to announce the panel here, but I just wanted to let you know we'll probably about 6:45 we'll break for questions, and I'd like to wrap it up by 7 tonight. But please do ask questions. This is a community event. We want lots of engagement. So to my left here, this is Tanya Lozano, who is I think probably doesn't need a big introduction here, but lead Chicago organizer for Gonzales, founder and director of Healthy Hood Chicago. She's also pastor at Holy Ground. And I'm sure that if you're not aware, that name resonates in this community. Her mother, Emma, is a longtime activist. And her late uncle, Rudy Lozano, is a legend, I think, on the west side of Chicago. Next to Tanya is Theresa McNamara. Grew up in Pilsen, chairs the Southeast Environmental Alliance, which includes a number of organizations. And Theresa's really been point on the activism around Pilsen, and we will be hearing a lot from her about that. And then next to Theresa is her sister, Mary Gonzales. Both Mary and Theresa are, Chicago natives. Mary was a community organizer, professional community organizer from 1980 to 2012. When she retired, she founded Gamaliel. Did I say it right? Thank you, Gamaliel, yes. And she currently serves as the chair of the Social Justice Committee at this church, St. Paul Catholic Church. Theresa and Mary are the daughters of Guadalupe Reyes, another legend here in the community, activist legend. And then finally, Olga Bautista, who's executive director of the Southeast Environmental Task Force. She's a longtime Southeast Side community activist. Also has been a community planning manager at Alliance for the Great Lakes. She was instrumental in enforcing controls of manganese and pet coke piles in the 10th Ward, and then more recently was involved in the fight over a similar car shredding operation on the southeast side. So I want to start out with SIMS. There have been multiple polluters in Pilsen, but there's a lot of tension on SIMS now. And maybe you can, I'll leave it to the three Pilsen organizers here to talk about, what is it with SIMS? Well, first of all, what is SIMS? And, we'll kind of go from there.
Explain what SIMS is? SIMS Metal Management is a metal shredding company who has been violating several regulations in terms of the pollution they've been letting out into our communities. We've had several interactions with SIMS, but they've been able to continue to operate because of their political ties and how they donate to campaigns and so forth. And again, we have organized several actions, meetings, brought in all aspects of government, IEPA, policy change makers, and we still haven't been able to stop them from operating.
But we're going to.
But we're going to.
Yes. SIMS is a big polluter. But you also need to know that SIMS is a multi-millionaire who runs this place, SIMS. They have a lot of money, So when they decide that they got a phone call and someone says, we want this much product done, they decide, should I do it or not? If I do it, this is how much money I'm going to make. If I don't do it, I'm going to lose revenue, right? So When they do it, they get slapped in the hand and they get a citation. But they have so much damn money, they don't care. And who is paying for it? The people that live here that end up with asthma, cancer, heart disease. And that company, like many others that are here in our communities, get away with it over and over again. And one of the things that you all need to know, that in a 5-year span, in 2018 to 2022, there were 69 citations. 39 of them were dropped. So if I get a ticket at the stoplight, do I have to pay it? Yes. When a company like Sims, Mad Asphalt, Clean Harbors, Wheatland Tube, the list goes on, because we got a lot of them in our communities. I don't know what they end up doing or who they know downtown, they get away. And we, the people, need to fight that. And we need to stop them from getting away from not paying those citations.
I just want to add, the depths of how shady this company has been operating, like we can't even begin, like it's the tip of the iceberg. When we think about, like, they've been able to avoid getting tested by not functioning during testing hours. There was recently a fire, right? And nobody in the community was made aware until long after. We still haven't received any kind of data regarding what damages were done because of that fire. We were told, oh, don't worry about it, the fire was outside. Yeah, that's why we're worried about it, because it was outside and we're breathing in that air. We don't know if it was a chemical fire, anything. When I say, like, we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg in terms of how shady this company has been operating and how little information has been given to the residents who live around it. We've been trying to do the best that we can to just inform our community of what's going on, because we were just talking about earlier, we have become so used to smelling this level of pollution, inhaling this level of pollution, that it's normal to us. But when people come from Wrigleyville, people come from the north side to our neighborhood, they can smell it. They can feel the difference. It's harder to breathe. And so it's been difficult because it's also, we're battling something that people are unaware of. And so it's been just informing our community and trying to hold, the people in power who are accountable for stopping this kind of, racial discrimination and environmental racism, quite frankly.
The other part in regards to Sims and what we've been doing is some data is out right now in regards to Sims. Last year, we asked for a 114. A 114 is monitors to measure the pollution that's coming out of this facility. The problem, and it's a big problem, is that who places these monitors? Sims. Who collects the data? Sims. Who reports it? They report it, they set them up, and they decide where they're going to have those monitors. Right now, we're questioning 2 of the monitors, or maybe, who knows, but right now 2 of the monitors where they're located. We're monitoring we're questioning their map that they decided to put out. No labels of what they have in each of those buildings and where those monitors are placed. Did they bring somebody from the outside to set it up? No. They are doing it. So I am not happy with the data that we're seeing coming from Sims.
And neither are we.
I agree.
Let me follow up, but let me ask you this question, because Sims has been operating in the same location for 30 years plus, right? And we know their history with EPA. What was sort of the last straw where you guys really amped up the organizing and the actions? Was it Was it when the state sued them in,
I think it was when the state
Okay.
decided to sue them. The state drags its feet too, and once the state gets so upset that they actually sue them, we say we've got a serious problem. And what Sims is doing right now is they're making contributions to not-for-profit organizations in the neighborhood. They're inviting us to lunch. You know, they're sending out flyers saying we want to be good neighbors. They sent me an email last week. They want to meet with me. They're going to meet with me, and they're not going to enjoy the meeting. I look forward to meeting with them. I cannot wait, and I'm going to invite all of you to join me in that meeting. So that is the problem, but it's beyond Sims. You know, we are probably the most polluted community in America. And it makes me angry that polluters have been moved out of other communities and brought here because politicians do not want to upset voters who are not minority people. And so they imagine that minority people have stronger lungs, or they're not as important, or who cares about them anyway. And so they bring these polluters into our community. And it's not right. And now then the city, this is where I get upset, Brett. The city then says, well, this polluter, we're going to assess just this polluter and see if he or she is doing the right thing. Oh, and we're also going to assess the one next door to that one, but just him or her. And so they never consider what's happening because we got 3,000 polluting industries in 5 neighborhoods. They don't ask that, and that is insulting. It means they don't give a damn whether we live or die. And then we don't get decent health insurance because most of our people are low-income people, working-class people. We don't have high-level health insurance programs. And so more of our people in the hospital, more of our children with asthma, more of our adults dying of cancer, of lung disease, of heart disease. I'm tired. I've been here all my life. I have a lung disease, and I am sick and tired of watching little kids. My time is measured now. I'm on borrowed time. But my little grandchildren are not. I don't want them walking around in a place where they're going to be poisoned by the time they're 21. And it's racism. Let's call it what it is. It's downright racism. It's classism. What other name do you give it, Olga?
It's sexism.
It's sex.
It's all of them. It's all of them.
It's all the
It's all of them.
all the isms. They're just a bunch of very wealthy characters who don't give a damn what happens in neighborhoods like ours. And they feel it's not a problem to drop a polluter into Pilsen, little village back of the yards, McKinley Park, or Southeast Chicago. My father worked in Southeast Chicago for 30 years, and he died of cancer from all the steel dust he swallowed in that company. Wisconsin Steel. Wisconsin Steel. And so that's the fight. It's outright racism. It's outright, sexism, classism, every ism you can imagine. That's what's going on here. We're supposed to live in a society where we're all equal. We're not equal here. We are not equal.
so Sims is a company or a business that takes large pieces of metal up to, cars,
Right.
junked cars. And
Smash 'em.
and until the end of 2020, there was actually 2 in town. General Iron, which had operated for decades in Lincoln Park, which in 2019, Reserve Management had announced that it was going to buy General Iron, and it was going to move operations, shut down those operations in Lincoln Park, and move them to the southeast side, into an industrial area. And Olga, walk us through this. It was, the southeast side had been the receiving end of lots of, businesses like this. And it seemed like, that was the last straw. Walk us through that a little bit. And if you wanted to mention the HUD investigation too, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So we were actually at a neighborhood meeting that looked very much like this in the southeast side, and we were discussing air monitors that had gone up in our neighborhood to catch the pet coke, petroleum coke, that was like spreading out around our neighborhood because these big companies were storing massive amounts of petroleum coke that was coming from the BP refinery across the border in Indiana. And the air monitors went up and they caught manganese in the air monitors. And we really didn't know a lot about it. Only a handful of folks knew what manganese was. And while we were meeting with the EPA, US EPA, IEPA, the Chicago, the public health officials, we actually had our Alderwoman Garza, pull us aside and said, "Don't leave yet, because I want to talk to you about something." And she pulled us aside and she said that there was a plan to bring this company to our community, that it was going to from Lincoln Park, and that she was getting a lot of pressure from Commissioner Reifman. And there was like 12 of us in the room when she told us this, and she cried and she's like, "You got to help me." And we're like, "All right, let's do it." Like, we've already stopped Leucadia, which was a coal gasification plant that wanted to open across from George Washington High School. We had already got like these massive piles of petroleum coke removed from our neighborhood, and we were gearing up for a fight with manganese, and we're like, "Yeah, let's just add them to the list," right? And right. And so we started to figure out, like, what are the ways that we can make an intervention? Like, what are the public comment periods? What is the process for this merger to happen? And we did all the things, right? We had the data that was available to us at that time. We went to the meetings, and it looked like we were not going to win. Like, it looked pretty bleak. And to be honest, remember, this is also, for folks who might not know, this was happening during a global pandemic. So the ways that we learned how to organize to stop Leucadia, to stop the pet coke, to stop manganese, all of that was out the window. Because we had people like myself and Peggy Salazar, who was my predecessor at the Southeast Environmental Task Force, with pre-existing conditions, and we were not willing to go out. Just try to remember what it felt like before there was a vaccine. Right. And as luck would have it, students at George Washington High School had just kicked out the armed police officers. Big ups to the George Washington High School students who kicked out armed police officers from their school. They didn't want any more security that were armed with weapons, and they won this fight. And the organizers were like, "So what's next?" And they're like, "General Iron!" And we were like, "Thank God," because we didn't know what else to do, right? We had pulled all the tools we had in our tool shed, and then they're like, "We're going to march on Alderwoman Garza," because at some point she jumped ship and was supporting or becoming very silent on the issue after she was the one who alerted us to it, and then she just had disappeared. So then there was a march to her house for her to take a position on General Iron, which, like I mentioned, she was silent on. And then there was marches to Lori Lightfoot's house. And at the same time, the reason why the youth were fighting for the cops to be removed was because George Floyd had just been murdered by armed police officers. And there was this like intersection of campaigns, of values that was happening in the environmental justice movement that was also pro-Black. And it was phenomenal to see. Like, it was just, I'm getting children out talking about it. It was absolutely incredible. And we were also, we weren't just doing, so because we had been involved in campaigns for many years, I myself, for 12 years, we knew that if we didn't have data, that this was going to be very difficult. So 6 years ago, we started working on doing collecting data that hadn't been collected before. So we did like, what are the health outcomes of people who live around the industrial corridor? And there's actually people in the audience right now from UIC, Daisy, Gail, folks who helped us create that data, and it was foundational. It had never been collected before. Nobody ever cared to find out what are the health outcomes of the people who live in one of the most polluted neighborhoods in the community. So I think it was like the perfect storm, right? Our target, we had the data, we had an activated constituency and like residents who were fed up with this shit, and then. Well, yeah, we had that. I guess it was just the two things. And it was enough for us to be able to to spoil these plans that this company had to merge. We already have a ton of metal shredders in our neighborhood. This was going to be the one that was going to be a mega metal shredder, enormous, right across the street from a high school, like a mega metal shredder that was going to be shredding vehicles, and something like that was not in existence already in our neighborhood.
Do you still believe he's going to start up?
Well, they're appealing their decision. Yeah, they're appealing the city's decision to deny the permit. And yeah, I mean, we're like ready to fight at any and every level that we need to, because we know that we have science on our side, we have the communities on our side. And people in our community are really just done with having to always this extracting, right, from our community. They always want to extract our labor, extract our health, extract our resources. And now we have a company who wants to dig underground and extract limestone from our neighborhood. And that has to stop. If there's not plans for something that's actually going to bring us that's going to be restorative, that's going to bring back the nature spaces, that's going to bring back jobs that are not going to hurt us, then they're not welcome.
As I reported last week, there might be a monumental agreement between the federal government and the city of Chicago as soon as Friday, and this all started with the complaint that your organization filed, saying that this idea of bringing this one business from the north side to the southeast side, white, affluent, Lincoln Park, a community of color, east side, also, affecting South Dearborn and Hegewisch. That complaint led to this investigation, the civil rights investigation. Can you talk about that for just a second?
Well, first of all, nothing like this has ever happened before, has been done before, has been attempted, but the reality is that this is not the first or the second. This is the third company who is being relocated from the exact same part of the North Branch of the Chicago River to our neighborhood. The third. So that's a pattern. So there's a pattern here. The city was involved in systematically cleaning up one neighborhood and concentrating polluters in our neighborhood, and that ain't right. And that's why we filed a civil rights complaint, because we had that information and we wanted to see if the HUD would, what would they say if a city that was receiving so much money, so much federal dollars that are it comes with restrictions, right? You can't be involved in racist acts, and if they're improving property values of a predominantly white neighborhood, and then concentrating and keeping our community in this environmental injustice situation, then that's racism right there. And that's what we filed our complaint.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you a question, then I'm going to pose a similar question to our Pilsen organizers here. But, the 10th Ward has never recovered from the loss of the steel mills. I interviewed all the aldermanic candidates for the 10th Ward. None of them had an economic development plan. What do you, in economic development is a piece of it, but what do you see as a alternative? What's a better southeast side? You worked on this in a different organization. Just tell us, there's a better vision than what you see right now.
Well, also, I just want to use Sims as an example, because in the South Bronx in New York, Sims is like the model company that activists actually work with, because they have enclosed everything. They have a rooftop garden. They have a freaking wind turbine. They have invested to like rebuild the freaking coastline. And everybody's like, hey, you should be more like Sims. So the problem here is not Sims or General Iron, it's the rules that these companies have to. So our target has always been the city of Chicago. You know, so you set the rules. These rules are causing a situation where we're seeing environmental racism. These rules gotta go. And that's actually, I'm so excited because the mayor today announced the executive order, and I have it in front of me on my laptop. I actually haven't had a chance to like go through it all. But this executive order that really is centering impacted communities, that is putting a mandate to say that we have to do this research. So to answer your question about like what comes next, what kind of, we have a green economic industrial corridor principles and values that was worked out back when the Leucadia, the coal gasification company was stopped in our neighborhood. The community said, what do we want to do? How do we want to move forward? Well, before we can start to recruit new companies, what are our principles and values? So some of the things that would be in the Green Economic Industrial Corridor principles and values are that it has to be clean. It has to not cause harm. It has to hire people from within the community. There has to be a community benefit. They have to support the natural spaces, like provide those kind of clean jobs, which we know are the future. Like that is the future. There's so much money, federal dollars that are coming into states all across the country. Chicago needs to jump on that, get those dollars in, and create those investments and those incentives for those companies who are thinking about climate change, who are thinking about public health, who want to be a good neighbor. But really, it's the city of Chicago that has to change these land use laws first, the way that they enforce them. Everything that you said was resonating with me so much about how they're just finding these companies, and then that's just the cost of operating. It's so much cheaper just to pay the freaking fine than actually fixing the freaking problem, you know? So they keep polluting. We have companies in our neighborhood who rack up fines up the wazoo and then change their name every 10 years, and it start all over.
They're doing it here.
Like, I want to do that.
Really?
I do not want to do that. No, I mean that is so messed up, right? Like that they actually get rewarded, right? They get to get a clean slate and start from scratch again. And then they get contract. And this is a big issue that our partners in McKinley Park, Alfredo Romo, Mirna Romo, and the crew have been working on too, because if you have all these, the city has to adjudicate these violations. As soon as they settle, and this is what happened with General Iron, they settle these violations, and then it's erased from the record. What? It's erased from the record.
That's what I'm saying. I wish it was that easy to get something expunged off of our record.
Yes, no. Yes. So then if they don't adjudicate them, then they can go to the, so it also starts at the state level, right? Because at the state level, before these companies move into our neighborhoods, they have to get a permit from this at the state level. And as the rules exist right now, you can go, you can get and apply for your permit at the state level. There is not a third party appeal process. So like, if a company is coming into your neighborhood and they apply at the state level, the state is not letting us know, and there's no way for you to appeal it. So that if we could stop it at the state level, then it would give us a much better chance of making sure that the companies that are coming into our neighborhood are not going to harm us. And that, Oscar Sanchez told me to make sure I tell everybody who's here today that we are having a power hour tomorrow, because there is actually a rule that we want to pass on the state level, and it's the EJ permitting rule, and we need everybody who's here today to support, to call your state reps and your state senators to make sure that this rule passes on the state level. It is critical for the work that we're doing.
Thank
I
you.
think one of the difficulties here, and you know more about it than I do, but the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois, and the federal government have no rules regarding justice communities, communities like ours. And so the EPA told us, well, if they apply, if they check off all the boxes, well, we have to give them the permit, you know, because they checked off all the boxes. And there's not another step that says, should it be in this location? What else is already there? What impact will it have on the community, economically, socially, in terms of the health? Nothing. They get the permit. And I asked the EPA director here in the state of Illinois, why do you do that? And he said, the state legislature has not given us any definition or any rules. And so if they check off all the boxes, we must do it. And if we don't, the company will sue and they'll win. Which was hard for me to believe, quite honestly, Olga, that could happen. And that it happens at all levels. It happens at the city, happens at the state, and happens at the federal level. Now, the EPA director did tell me, I have a definition. I just can't use it. We know what we could do, but we're not allowed because the state legislature is not moved. Why doesn't the state legislature move? Because
They're bought.
they're bought and paid for. The lobby industry is so powerful, they put a lot of dollars into the pockets of city councilmen and women, of state legislators, and congressional leaders and senators.
One of the other things in regards to the work that we are doing in the community that you all need to understand, that we'd like you to know, that when we're fighting this, you would think that there might be one person in the city, one person in the state, one city in the U.S. federal government that would say, you know, if you did this, you can possibly stall them, you could possibly stop them. No. Last year, just by chance, we were in a meeting with the city, and the city asked us to help them fill up a room to have a meeting on Sims. We agreed. But then we heard they had no data. And I said, wait a minute. And why are we going to meet with them? And my feeling was, I know what they're doing. This is a damn game that they play over and over again. They have a public meeting, and now they call it a public hearing. And they bring all their folks, and then they give the permit to the company.
And they say we had a public hearing.
And so then what we did was we put a petition together, and we stopped them. And we said, no, you cannot have your meeting at Benito Juarez, and we are not going to be your ushers so that you could bring in your puppets to talk to our people. No. So we stopped them for a little while.
Not enough.
Not enough. And the reason why it's not enough is we need more people from more communities to join us, because this is a black and brown issue. And the only way we're going to win this is if we come together, whether it's the people in the 20th ward, the 40th ward, pick a ward where there are black and brown people. They all should be coming together, and we should be fighting. Right now, it's the trains. We have the North Fork Southern, the one that I'm pretty sure a lot of you heard about, all these derailments. Well, do you know that one runs on the south side, and it runs down Ashland Avenue, thereabouts. It goes down 47th Street, and it's right behind my neighborhood, McKinley Park, right next to another polluter, Mad Asphalt. And what is the plan? I end up seeing in the newspaper that in 2050, they are planning 50% more train traffic. Where do you think they're going to be dumping them at? Here, in this community. The South Side has become the dumping ground for the city of Chicago. I'm sorry. Here you go.
So, Mary, Theresa, and Tanya, I want to ask you, what's What are some fixes? How do you make a greener, cleaner Pilsen? Yeah.
Well, I think there are fixes. One of the things that we've talked about is green jobs. And there is space in the industrial corridor for us to bring in green jobs. But I can't imagine a green job facility wanting to come into such a polluted area, right? And so we need to, number one, we need to limit or put a stop on any new industries coming in until we have a real good handle on what's there. Secondly, we've got to address this thing about healthcare, about our health. And I think Sims could do what they've done. Where was it, in New York?
In the South Bronx.
In the South Bronx. They could do it here. But there's nothing that has initiated enough interest in them doing it. It hasn't been in their interest yet, right? But that could be done not only at that company, but many companies. And I think educating the people and letting them know we need to be engaged. A real community process so we can really discuss with them what they're going to do. But I think this cumulative thing is what's really important to us, that we need to understand the cumulative impact. It's not only here, it's in Southeast Chicago, right? What is the cumulative impact of having all these industries? Chicago needs industries for jobs, right? But they should be spread out. We should all get our fair share of that, and they should do maximum to minimize impact. But until we, both the city and us, until we become powerful enough to force the city, what do we do? What can we do?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, one of the things too is that's part of the executive order is that there is a cumulative impacts assessment that is taking place right now. So this is creating, essentially what the assessment is doing is the research, right? Like, how are we going to create a policy without first understanding what's happening? So that's what's happening now, and that's in the executive order. And it's also in the executive order, you can't really say like this is the new rule. It has to go to city council. But I mean, I just want to like celebrate right now our city council and like our mayor, that we have, that are the folks who we've been working with for a very long time. Brandon Johnson even hired one of the hunger strikers. There was folks might not know, but there was a 30-day hunger strike to stop the relocation of General Iron to our community. And, there's just, just looking at this room right now, like, it makes me feel like we are on that path, right? If there was 5 people here, I would be nervous. Any of us could, take a break, and I know there are tons of leaders who are ready to take that mantle. In our neighborhood, we have so many people that we had presented to them in high school, in grammar school. They went to UIC, they went to college, they got a degree, they came back and they're like, Olga, I want a job doing what you're doing. If I wasn't seeing that every day, I get emails from people in the community, like, I want to join your organization. What do I have to do? I have a degree, I have this. Like, people are thirsty for justice, and they want it, and I just feel like the youth now, they get it, and it's not that, I think like we should take a little credit for making EJ sexy, right? Like, people want to, come on, come on.
The other thing to that, we got to remember, like, we asked for the 114, which is monitors that go around Sims. And like what I said earlier, that the Sims is in control of that. We need to change that picture. It doesn't make any sense, because like what I said was, these monitors, they place them. Now, this is a multi-billion-dollar company. They know where to put those monitors so that you could get a very good reading, so they hide them. They make sure that they're not going to get the best quality. Now, who knows what kind of air quality we're going to get from Sims. But we should know where they're placing those monitors. We should have those locations labeled, that this is where they're crushing the cars, this is where they're putting chemicals in, this is whatever. We don't have that on paper yet. And so we have a lot of work to do, people. And yes, I congratulate everybody here that's working on this. And I thank everybody that's here that came to join us tonight, because each of you are listening, and I'm hoping that you go back and you bring somebody else with you.
But I think what you just said, that making EJ sexy, I love that, because you know what's happened? I mean, you're just talking about the executive order, right? Prior to that, there was the HUD report, right, which you instigated, and saying that this was out and out racism. Then there was the study that's being done by the city. When we had our public meeting, Megan Cunningham came and announced it. And so these are 3 good moves, right? It's very good moves, I think, given where we were 3 or 4 years ago. And I
Or
think
given where we were 30 years ago.
you inspired us a lot here, because we were just getting started when you started the fight
But
with
Mary
General Allen.
and Olga, I would wonder, now, you got to remember, who won this election? Brandon Johnson. And he came to our neighborhood and said, I am going to put the environmental program back, department back. And 4 years prior, I saw Lightfoot. She saw me with my sheets that I was getting signatures, and she told me, oh, I know you're from McKinley Park. Oh, you're here about Mad Asphalt. Oh, you're here about talking about air pollution. Yes. She says, I'm going to push that. She never did.
Well, she did. She gave him a lot of money.
No, she gave, she gave him a lot of money. And the way she did it was, he had a $20,000 thing that he needed to do and to pay off. And so he paid that bill, and then she gave him over $150 million in contracts.
I just want to add too, like, we've been demanding the cumulative impact report for quite some time, and it's good that it's on track now, right? But the truth is, we already know what it's going to say. Because guess what? We already got all the cancer. We already got all the asthma. We know it's going to say that cumulatively all these companies are making us sick. So in addition, when we're pushing for policy now with a new progressive mayor, is that we also have to meet some of these immediate needs with urgency. So that means policy that includes, while we are living in the pollution, that the city is required to give us air purifiers, water purifiers, to outfit our homes so that we can survive in the meantime while a study happens to tell us what we already know. So it's not just about, what the 5-year long goal is. It's also about what are we doing now to help us people believe in our government again, right? And the fact that we don't want to continue to feel like profits are being placed above the needs of the people. All of these systems that we have talked about are missing one thing, is that they don't ask the people permission for anything. All they can go straight to fill out an application, check all the boxes, and then the state gets to make the decision. These are people who live not even in Chicago. These are people far removed from the conditions in which we live, who are making decisions about our lives. And so that's what we need to teach our people. First and foremost, there needs to be a political education campaign starting yesterday, where people are at least being informed of what their current conditions are, and there needs to be policy that is implemented immediately so that they can outfit our environment for now, so that we are not affected by what is happening while they do their research. Okay? That's where I'm at with it, because I have asthma, both my kids have asthma, and you know what I mean? Like, we need immediate relief. We need relief now. So what does that look like? I don't want to just fear when I'm drinking tap water that I'm contributing to my kids' asthma, or that every time they play outside. You know, there has to be something happening now. That's all I have to say.
I want to leave a few minutes for questions from the audience. We have a microphone right here in the middle. And just real quick before we take any questions, I want you guys to give me kind of succinct answers here. But, you know, Mary, Theresa, and Tanya, I met you guys downtown. Do you remember this? Outside of the Chicago EPA headquarters, demanding a meeting with the regional administrator, Deborah Shore.
And they said no. They said no. And so we said, the children will go up.
Right.
So the children went up.
And Olga, I've been, you know, around you with all sorts of actions. But you know, how this could be an hour-long question or answer, I should say. We don't have that, so maybe something kind of succinct. But how do you get heard as a community? Let's start with you, Olga.
I mean, I think what you were saying is absolutely key. Like, there's enough information out there to make decisions right now, and that's what we have to demand. You know, there's not like one way. I think it has to be let's do all the things, but when we are out there, like, telling our stories, like, are we suffering? What about this? Are we suffering like the folks in Lincoln Park? If there was a metal shredder in their neighborhood, they could take a day off of work. They have good insurance. They probably have like their house nicely sealed. It doesn't infect people the same way. So there are things that can happen right now, and we should be demanding. That's what we should be demanding. Shut it down. Do not shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down. If you cannot prove, they cannot prove that this is safe, they put that burden on us. We have to prove that it's not safe. Why don't they have to prove that it's safe? Those rules. So I think exposing just how corrupt and how racist these laws are every day, loud as can be, through art, through our music, through our murals, through with our voices in our schools, all of those things. I can't tell you, Brett, there was like this like magic pill or like this one plan. I think it was all the things that had to happen. It was the perfect storm. And to be honest, it was the youth in our community who won this. This is their win. We had to get out of the way so that they could lead. And they told us what they wanted to do, when they wanted to do it, how much it was going to cost. It was up to us to figure out those logistics. But I think, just not gatekeeping, making sure there's opportunities for everybody to get involved, all the things we have to say, do them all.
And in terms of us here in Pilsen, what we've used is a lot of direct action because that's the only way we're finding we can be heard. Public meetings, we show up at people's offices with 50 people, we insist that they talk to us, we picket people, we do whatever we have to do. But we had an incident here in Pilsen where they were going to call this a historic landmark area, and the zoning chair refused to meet with us. He just refused over and over. So we did a little research. We found out he had a restaurant. We just found out that he loved to do brunch himself in the kitchen on Sundays. So we took 50 people to his restaurant, nailed him inside the kitchen. Inside the kitchen, and he gave in and he said, okay. And so we won. But it's that we're finding, for our purposes, we did not start a 501c3. We don't have staff. We're just angry homeowners and residents, and we want to teach people to express their values through action instead of sitting and waiting for a magic pill for a good politician. Not only is the system racist, the people are racist who are making the decisions. They like to say, well, it's the city of Chicago. Who the hell is the city of Chicago? 50 aldermen, a mayor, and a big staff, and they make the decisions.
Yeah, and really quick, let's not let these white-led organizations off the hook either, who give these companies a lot of cover. For instance, we have Friends of the Chicago River who just took money from Sims for their River Day. I think everybody here should call Friends of the Chicago River and tell them to return that money. That is blood money. You do not accept money from a polluter that is harming people to have a fun recreational day in their own neighborhood. That is wrong.
Well, here in our own neighborhood, the organization that used to be the 18th Street Development Corporation just had a very nice meeting with Sims at Benito Juarez. The children that Sims is poisoning, right in that school, they met to all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And I'm sure there's money involved. That makes me angry too. You know, because this is a not-for-profit who has plenty of resources and does not have to use Sims to survive. So, but our voice is going to get louder, and it's going to get louder, especially now that we have a new mayor. We hope his voice will join us, but if it doesn't, we'll do the same thing with him.
We also have the IEPA, and they told us, well, let me go back a little bit. UIC, the School of Public Health, have been working with us. And they had an MOU, which is a memo of understanding. And what we wanted was information about asphalt plants, because they're not being covered the way other polluters are. Well, we got a lot of them. That sheet that you have in front of you, it tells you how many asphalt plants that we have. All right? Now, that MOU happened 2020. It is 2023, and we don't have the data yet. Why? Well, I called Chris Parsnell, and I asked him. And he said, well, you know, Theresa, they're really busy, and they told us that they're working on permits. Excuse me? Permits are more important than the health of the people that live in these communities that are breathing this muck every single day? I have a bone to pick with them. We have a meeting next Saturday, and we will be talking about this, because we're not going to let the IEPA, the US EPA, pick all these, the city. We're going to hold them all accountable, and we need your help.
I would say
I wish she wasn't so foggy about her position.
she's very clear. I would say, you know, let's not underestimate the power of educating our people and informing our people, specifically, like Olga said, the youth. We think about the last event that we had as a Southwest Environmental Alliance. It was youth-led. We had both mayoral candidates at the table. We made them make commitments. It's really hard to say no to young people, because young people are honestly like what everybody's scared of right now. They know how much power we have, and we have to get, yeah, and we came out to vote, and we elected ourselves a new mayor. And so, you know, right now we have a momentum, and we have to, like, it's desired now to be a part of a social justice movement. You know, that perfect storm that Olga talked about, we're in the midst of it right now. We just, again, Brandon was polling at 2% at the start of his campaign. And he's going to be sitting on the 5th floor. We have to seize the time. And we have to continue to be consistent in our movement for environmental justice. That means there needs to be direct actionings happening often. There needs to be a constant campaign where we are informing our people. We need to be demanding policy that is meeting immediate needs, bringing immediate relief. And so the first and foremost, we have to open up the door for there to be transparency. And so, again, don't underestimate the power of just educating our people, because you sitting here right now, it's good that you mad. Get mad, because sometimes being angry can turn into action. We have to inform our people. Again, like, I didn't know. All of my family had asthma, and I didn't know until I joined the Southwest Environmental Alliance. That was why. It's not a coincidence. There's a 20-year life expectancy gap in the city of Chicago between communities of color and affluent communities. It's the largest life expectancy gap in all of the country. You know why? Because historically, we're the most segregated city in all of the country. So when people say that this is not environmental racism, when people say that race is not a factor in why these injustices exist, that is a lie. Chicago proves that. Chicago's data proves that. And so we have to tell our people what is happening so that they can be a part of the solution. Otherwise, people are going to continue to make decisions about where we live without us. So nothing about us without us moving forward.
Okay, let's have some questions.
Hi, everybody. I'm Evelyn Figueroa, the founder director of the Pilsen Food Pantry. I really want to thank the panel for coming today. I did have a few questions. I wanted to, as actually an organization that cooperates with many local businesses, I wanted to ask a little bit more about a couple things that came off were surprising to me to hear. There was one comment that I wrote down that said, ready to fight on any level, and then there was another one talking about meeting and talking with organizations and having a dialogue, which I was happy to hear. And I also heard a comment that not-for-profit organizations have plenty of resources. And so that kind of hurt me deeply as the main grant writer for the Pilsen. Okay, well, so Pilsen is, Chicago historically, I'm a family physician as well, right? So, and I did all my science fair on environmental stuff. I'm a really green geek. I love recycling. We have a huge recycling program, composting, et cetera, at the Pilsen Food Pantry. And one of the things that I'm running into is people really not getting the history. So it is hard to move the status quo. I'm so happy to hear us talking about holding our elected officials and the policies accountable, because if Sims will do something great in the Bronx, I know for a fact Sims will do it here. And one of the things I've heard from Sims, because they actually are our shredder and pick up our recycling for our recycling program, is that they've really had a lot of trouble getting anyone to talk to them. So, and then I heard Ms. Gonzales say earlier that she was going to give them an earful, but first said she didn't want to talk to them. So as we move forward and try to hold each other accountable, there's this dialogue that has to happen. These, as we sit and fundraise for the Pilsen Food Pantry and spend $60,000 a year just on buying produce, because we're supporting 500 families a week, we have an international produce market that doesn't even compost or throw away anything that's right next door to Sims. And so I want us to really focus, I want to be part of the solution to, if any of you need help talking to any businesses in the corridor, I want to help you talk to those businesses, because they need to clean up. You have them on the ropes. They will do whatever they need to do, but until they have a clear directive, it doesn't make sense for them to do it. Now, regarding the comment about them putting in the towers for monitoring, that's done by a third-party agency. So it is, I've seen their plans. Ms. Gonzales, I've seen them, and I want to meet with you with Sims. That's what I want to do. I want us, and I have copies of the reports, and because I have an MD, I can read these reports. I agree that there are, no, I don't mean it like that.
No,
I
that's
mean,
how you mean it. That's how you mean it, okay?
Well, first of all, something, but, well, when you,
I don't need to have an MD to know that I'm being poisoned.
Or-
Lady,
wait, Olga, Miss Olga, what percentage of humans get cancer?
Go ahead.
50% of us do. I have asthma and I grew up on the north side. So there are very important, wait, please, yes, it is true. Please go to, I'd like to, I'm going to finish, because I have a lot of respect for what you're all doing, and I want us to collaborate.
Are you getting money from Sims?
Absolutely, we've gotten donations.
Well, congratulations.
All right, next
And
question.
who should pay for the food? Should I hit up the people in our neighborhood that come and get the food to buy it? Or should all the businesses help together?
So you're on our side, right?
I'm on the side of people with
you're in a
food
room,
insecurity.
okay, you are in a room that is located in Pilsen.
Yes, I am.
just had somebody that I'd never met before came up and showed me some stats that she found. And we have the highest, go ahead, let her speak. And this is information that I already have, but go ahead and say what you found.
Okay, I went online because I have the rarest cancer in the whole United States.
What's your name?
I'm Jessica Gonzales.
And what neighborhood do you live in?
I live across the street from Douglas Park. The doctor couldn't understand why would I have cancer, as I say, highly unlikely for me to have it with my lifestyle, my family history. Then she looks at me. She goes, "Where do you live?" I said, "Across the street from Douglas Park." Well, the rarest cancer in the whole United States which makes us sick and may kill me, but I want to save others. It is killing the women. It's rare in the whole U.S. It's not rare if you're a woman who lives near Douglas Park. My oncologist said she studies the neighborhood medical maps. So I was still reeling in shock that I was sick and whatever. So anyway, I went online at home and I found this, which this addresses some of your questions, Chicago. My zip code. My zip code is also, this zip code is also 60608. It also encompasses part of this Pilsen area. Respiratory illness risk. Here's my zip code, 49.5%. Here's the whole U.S. Here's Chicago, Naperville, Elgin, Metropolitan. I mean, this zip code has the highest respiratory illness risk in the whole United States. Now let's look at the other chart, cancer risk. The orange is 60608, the bottom is the US, and you can see that the green bar is Illinois, this bar is Chicago, Naperville, Elgin. Cancer risk, where I live, 60608. Highest cancer risk in the whole United States.
I think,
Okay.
just
this
to close out this portion, because you took up a lot of time,
Sorry.
and at the end we figured out that you get money from them, and so all I'm gonna say is we're going to meet with Sims. We ain't got no problem meeting with Sims. I was hit up for the first time since I joined the Southwest Environmental Alliance just last week. They have not been trying to meet with us. They make excuses like we're so hard to talk to. That's an excuse. That's an excuse. And I know for a fact that they pay nonprofit organizations, environmental nonprofit organizations, to keep their mouths shut about the kind of pollution that they put into this. This is some Aaron Brockovich stuff, okay? This is them using their money and their proximity to power to be able to function in a way where they are making us sick. So whether they're a part of your operation, which I know is a beautiful operation that serves a lot of people who get left in the cracks, that are marginalized, and I believe it. I've stood next to you and fought for you to receive resources for what you do, but we're not taking blood money. We are the Southwest Environmental Alliance. None of the organizations on our alliance receive anything from Sims Metal Management, nor will we ever receive anything from them. We are fighting this from all angles. We've brought every kind of government to get involved. For them to say that they're trying to talk to us, that is offensive. That is offensive. Like I said, they reached out for the first time last week. And guess what? We will meet with them. And yes, they will hear an earful. And if they're wise, they would sit there, shut up, listen, and play their role.
And they should clean up their mess. Okay, they are going way over the status quo for a company that they have, and it's because they're getting a bigger purse. They can pay it off. We could put all the citations on them, and they could pay it off. It's okay, and we end up getting the smells. We end up breathing the illnesses that we are taking in. We have that.
They just had a fire. They just had a fire, and we were able to figure it out before they were. We got on the press conferences and told the community about the fire. They just had a fire. Like
they called the police and report.
You know what? Just sit down, because now you're just representing Sims at this point. We knew they were going to be here, and if there's any other people here from Sims, we know you're here.
Or General Iron, or Mad Asphalt, or Clean Harbor.
And we don't care. We're not scared of you.
I would like to get through some more questions here, so.
Could I face the,
come on.
Could I face the audience? I don't need a mic. I got it. So.
Okay, this guy's from General Iron, I think.
So, I'll address that right away. So, folks, there is no General Iron. Let's get that straight.
This is one of those companies that end up changing their names.
I work at Reserve Management Group, Southside Recycling, and you guys can do all you want. Well, let's get some facts out. I want to correct some.
Let's take a vote about whether we want to hear from this man. How
No.
many people
Who want to hear from
Here
him?
we go. Here we go.
No! Out! Out!
You should.
Out!
It's a public meeting. I was asked to speak. I should be able to speak. So
He was not
I want
asked to
address
speak.
a couple things.
Stand and turn around, guys.
I'm not a Southwest Sider. I grew up in the Southeast Side, in the 10th Ward, my whole life. I'm 56 years old. And there is no general iron. You can turn around, good, that's okay, I can talk, you'll hear it.
We're not gonna pay attention.
So, okay, I'll still talk, you don't gotta pay attention, cover your ears. Is there a question? No, I'm gonna make a statement. So Olga Bautista here gave you some facts that were false, that I wanna correct them. Boo! So the first thing she said was, Leucadia was stopped for environmental reasons. That's not the case. Leucadia was stopped because it would have cost the
I wonder
state
how
too
much they're
money.
paying him to be here tonight.
It would have cost the state too much money. Okay? Now, what else we got? Police being removed from the high school. That's fantastic. I work right across the street from George Washington. And guess what? There's 25 to 30 kids walking in the neighborhood every day. When the police are in there, they keep them in school to get an education where they should.
Yeah, right.
You know what? Now he's a cop too.
From the high school. Leucadia was on 106th Street, not 114th
All right.
Street.
All right, hold on. We do want to get to more questions here, so.
This happens all the time. This happens all the time. When
Okay.
someone wants to say something, you guys who know everything about environment,
All right.
you guys want to shut everybody down. You'll never shut me down. I don't care who you are or what you are.
All right.
Okay?
All right.
So I can just tell you this. Southside Recycling, which is under the Reserve Management Group umbrella, is in compliance with everything required by the city and the state.
That's the problem.
We are in compliance with everything required by the city and the state. We have went above and beyond. We have a proposed shredder at our facility that we've invested $80 million in. The best recycling technology in the country, if not the world.
Well, go check it out.
And I invite all you guys to come down. I invite all you guys to come
I
down.
think, wait, he's the master.
I invite you to come down. Come down and check our facility, our shredder. Like I said,
All right.
you talked about Sims doing something in the Bronx. I'm not worried about the Bronx, I'm worried about our neighborhood.
All right, thank
I've
you.
been active my whole life in our neighborhood.
So go home.
We're going to take a few more
Go
questions.
take care of your neighborhood. You don't belong here.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, all right, so you see what we go through.
All right, go ahead.
Reverend Michael Moore, Dr. Figueroa, good to see you again. I want to make a few comments about remarks I heard tonight. The first thing is Dr. Figueroa made a very succinct point that I think is powerful, because the Trump presidency reminded us of the necessity of maintaining a dialogue, because when we don't talk to each other, we fight. And Dr. Martin Luther King said the best way to get rid of an enemy is to make him a friend. But I'll get to my points. I want to thank Ms. Lozano for her ancestors' heroism. I regard him as a legend in his own time. I used to play semi-pro baseball back in my more athletic 70s. And the few times I struck out, there was an umpire behind me calling the strikes. If I had have had the opportunity to call my own strikes, as in maintain my own monitoring systems, I think I never would have struck out, and I almost had an opportunity to try out for the Atlanta Braves. My point is, I don't understand how anybody can independently monitor their own compliance. That's a conflict of interest, because we play for our own team. And nobody is going to report non-compliance if they're able to monitor their own compliance with the existing, standards. It's not going to happen. Just like I never would have called a strike on myself. And I want to say this. The biggest insult anybody can give to Black Lives Matter, Brown Lives Matter, or any other lives matter is all lives matter. That is the most, it's basically a fuck you, let's call it out what it is. But if people are going to be less than intellectually dishonest, they have to say all lives matter instead of putting a period there, putting a comma there, and the remaining sentence should be to varying degrees. And the reason I said that is because there's a little company called Sterigenics. And let's talk about all lives mattering to varying degrees. Sterigenics, I believe, was in Willowbrook. egregiously treated a person, and she had negative health impacts and negative health income outcomes. One white woman got $363 million. Wow. One plaintiff who wasn't killed. One plaintiff who didn't die from the debilitating conditions caused by the repeated pollution that was around by the bad neighbor Sterigenics. So I want to know if the organization has incorporated legal assistance here, because this is basically a class action lawsuit. You got a whole community negatively impacted with negative health outcomes because of a misbehaving company that is able to operate. And I think that you made a connection between the finances. I think that should be reported. If you follow the money, you'll usually find the shitnanigans. I didn't mispronounce that. I meant to say shitnanigans. Let's see who's paying the play.
There you go.
If they're being relieved of the responsibility to comply with the standard regulations that apply to that industry, somebody's getting paid, that should be publicly reported.
I agree.
That should be publicly reported. These people should be placed on notice. Public accountability should ensue. And as far as the 20-year difference, I won't be here. None of us will be here. But this is how you know you win. If we could eliminate the 20-year life expectancy disparity, that's when you won. That's the finish line.
There you go.
That's when you won. Until then, nothing else should be settled for. Nothing else should be, you know what, we're good. No, we're not good. And the last thing I'll say, this is a land grab. This is we used to say back in the day in the 70s, the overlay for the underlay. Pilsen is being gentrified.
It sure is.
Because of elevated property taxes that the current residents can't afford. Once the Brown moves across town, you know who's going to move in this neighborhood.
Yep.
And you know what else is going to happen? Because all lives matter to varying degrees. Sims will either relocate elsewhere, as they did in Lincoln Park. When this neighborhood is white, if the gentrification process is successfully able to complete itself, Sims will either be a good neighbor and operate as they do in the Bronx, or they will leave town. They will move, because white lives matter more. I mean, brown lives matter, black lives matter, but white lives matter more.
Did you want to talk? Yeah, okay, so you go first. And
Buenas tardes. Me llamo Alejandro. I'll address this in Spanish first,
Okay.
and then I'll try my best to relate it in English. Buenas tardes todos aquí. Me llamo Alejandro Reyes. Mi familia tiene más de 50 años aquí en esta ciudad. I just want to speak briefly about everything we're talking about. Recently, we just had this conversation with General Iron and Hilco, whatever they're called now, in Little Village in regards to the Crawford Power Plant. And would you believe, pueden creer que más de 3-4 años after that environmental attack on us, nobody has answers to what was thrown on us? Nobody knows what's it doing to us, anything like that. The alderman, the mayor, all that. It was less than a month ago. I'm shaking because I recorded that. This conversation we're having right now, none of it, I'm telling you, I'm not trying to be egotistical. None of these things we're dealing with would have not happened had it not been for April 11, 2020. I promise you that. These clowns would not be held accountable. They brought their kids there to make fun of us. And when that shit went bad, they ran. They picked them up and ran. They did the Chicago way of doing things with like saying, hey, we got 12 fire trucks, we got all these policemen here. They didn't. I got the footage in 4K. But again, that's now a target. Their ComEd and them are arguing about, oh, our trucks can't pass here, our trucks can't do this. Meanwhile, they're parking them on 31st and Pulaski, where those pollutants are traveling all across. This woman sharing her story about her rare cancer. Let me tell you, my mother has that. Never smoked, never drank. Little Village, back of the yards, all her life. We got the beer on and aluminum being poured on us. But what I really want to say is that if we don't hold our aldermen, if we don't hold these people, our people in office, these fine folk here, like I'm nothing to press, I love each and every one of you, but if we don't come at you every day, you know what's going to end up happening? We're going to be here 4 years later, and Byron or whoever's the alderman is going to sit here and be like, I didn't know. Oh, talk to me. Let's have a conversation. Meanwhile, we're dying. We're having the same things. We're going to Washington. We're putting in people that have been fighting this fight for years on end in a new administration because we're sick of it. We're sick of these cats coming here talking about, oh, I lived across the street from this school and this and that. Dude, do you know you guys are so aggressive to someone trying to film you guys? You bloodied him and broke his machines? Trying to hide your whatever it is you're doing over there? Like, had that been me, we would have thrown hands. Yeah, look at each other like you don't know what happened. Olga, you know what I'm talking about, right? The drone guy? Yeah, we do know. So again, I'm Alejandro Reyes. I documented the attack in Little Village. I've been threatened many times by individuals calling my house, all types of stuff, by organizations being paid for by these cats to shame me from helping my community. But you know what? Les digo ahorita, if we don't do it, they're going to keep coming up in here and just disintegrating this conversation we're having. Again and again. Where's Byron? Byron, licenciado. Oh, that's right, he's not here. You know what? Take notice of that, because you're going to go to Little Village and look at Mike Rodriguez and ask Mike Rodriguez the same questions. What's the particular matter we're breathing the last 4 years? What are the consequences of breathing it? Where are the people that are sick now? Are we giving any treatment? Particular matter, PM10 is currently in our river along Ashland, Chicago River. There's a metal shredder right there. There's an environmental group there every Thursday going out there to show you this. So we're being attacked by all angles. Now it's happening in Pilsen. It's not the only time. It's going to continue. My only recommendation, just do away with it all. We protest. We did it. We denied the permit. We can do it here. Get them all out of here. That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you. I think we have another question.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Norberto Casas. I'm with the People's Lobby, and I just had 2 questions for the panel that's here. We could start with Olga. It's Olga, right? Okay. Earlier today, you said that you guys marched on Alderman Garza's office regarding General Iron. Is that correct? Okay. In 2 words. So 2 words, and then Theresa, 2 words. Well, one person's name. Who are we going to march on next? What elected official are we going to march on next? Olga, go first.
Let's see where the chips land. Let's see what happens.
Mary. Theresa.
Elected official, we got a new one. We'll do Javier Cervantes, our new senator.
Okay.
Bring him in.
Listen, what you guys are lacking, and I appreciate the panel, and I love the panel, and I know the panel, for a while now, is we're lacking the political muscle to do this, okay? So I'm going to start again one final time, my final question to you guys, and then I'll make a final comment. House Bill 2520 deals with environmental justice. The chief sponsor of that bill is State Representative Harper. When was the last time, Olga, that you spoke with her? And then we'll go down. Mary.
I have not spoken.
Teresa.
I haven't spoken.
See, that's the disconnect. We need to have a dialogue directly with the chief sponsor, checking in with them we do it with our chief sponsor for the legislation that we have in the city council bi-weekly, every 2 weeks. So unless we have the structure in place to be able to hold these people's hands to the fire, checking in with them every 15 days, seeing what co-sponsors they added, seeing who we need to protest against, seeing whose office we need to raid. 2 of the 3 people on this stage right here have gone with me to raid elected officials' offices. They can do it again with me.
That's fine. Well, you know what, Beto? You are on our committee with the Southwest Environmental Alliance. I would recommend you be that point person, that you help and organize some of our people to do those calls that you're talking about. I'm all in favor of
Be
that.
careful what you wish for, you just might get it.
Hey,
Also,
Because that's the
I'll say
disconnect.
we have been on the news. I actually work with Kyla. Like, she has been really supportive at the People's Lobby. But this is not really productive to come and mansplain and to tell us how to do our jobs. That happens to us all the time.
No,
So
it's
with
a constructive criticism. It's a disconnect.
All due respect, Like I work very closely with Kyla. I have talked to them, but if you want to be and help with what's going on,
I'll do it with pleasure.
Then you already know where to.
Teresa and Mary will vouch for me, and I will do it with pleasure.
Will has my number,
Yeah.
and I would be happy to have you guys come and help do any movement. Do some door knocking with us,
Of course.
and all the rest of it.
Part
but-
of any movement is a constructive criticism, because we all want to get to the same destination.
Yes, but
Which
like
is-
coming
which is-
here
which is
and
clearing
doing-
overburdened communities,
and not
which is helping
like,
environmental justice,
You never
we're all
called,
getting there.
You didn't lift up the phone to call to
Okay.
see like, hey, how can I help? I see what you guys are going
Right.
through. You chose to come here and do this publicly, and,
Right.
and that's not right.
You know what? Thank you.
That's not
Thank you for-
very.
Olga, thank you
that's
for your
not very-
time.
All right.
You have a
Very
good night.
helpful.
All right, thanks. I want to wrap things up.
You guys know what this really is? This is history repeating itself. Critical race theory, no. Critical race fact. Nobody's history is a theory. This is, when these people first encountered your people on these shores, what'd they do? Here's your smallpox tainted blanket. This is the same thing. This is the same thing. It's a smallpox tainted blanket.
I want to thank my panel tonight, and I want to.
Oh, you lost one.
And I,
She was in Bellingham.
I know. But thanks for coming out. And thanks to this audience, great audience, great panel. Thanks to St. Paul for letting us use the space, and thank you for helping to facilitate that. I also want to thank Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Community Trust, which helped me cover the environment, environmental justice, and these important issues. And with that, I think we're done. I mean, I think there'll be people standing here. And round of applause for the audience or for the panel, and give yourselves a round of applause too. So lively discussion as always, and read the Sun-Times. Thanks.